Hi everybody, how's it going? Welcome back. Hope everyone's staying safe and healthy out there. It's been a little bit of a while since I've done one of these videos, and as you can tell, I'm in a new space as well. Hopefully one of the last times I'll be moving in a while, but today is going to be my official review about the Nikon Z9. I've had it for a couple months now, and I want to give my personal opinion about what I think about the product, the pros and the cons, and what I like and what I don't like about it. By the way, this is not sponsored by Nikon, or I don't have any affiliations with them. I am just a really happy user about their products. So disclaimer first, no payment was made. This is just me and my personal thoughts. All right, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, the first thing I like about this camera is that it is extremely durable. Even without the cage or anything else, it is an absolute tank. I've dropped it a couple times, got it knocked down over, and it's taken the beating extremely well. Once I had a cage on top of my Nikon Z6, there was no other way I could ever have a camera with that one. It is just so versatile, it's so nice, and it makes it look really beefy. I mean, this camera alone is extremely heavy, as you guys can see, but from the look of it as well, it just looks like an absolute tank. And when you're hauling this guy around, everyone's gonna be like, holy shit. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. Now, the second thing I like about this camera is the second update that we got for this guy, version firmware 2.0. Firmware 2.0, at least for video, brought some insane specs. We can shoot up to 8.3K, 12-bit, 422, and RAW, all internally, no overheating, and no memory card max space. Which basically means that we don't have like a cap on how long each video is going to be. It just keeps going until the memory card gets full or the battery dies. And if you've seen these batteries, these guys are thick. They are, oh, it's not focusing. It's thick. It is absolutely gargantuan and huge. It's just like the 1DX batteries. These things last an absolutely long time. When I went to go shoot EDC for all 3 days, one battery lasted me pretty much the entire time, and the entire time I was there, I shot everything in 4K. So 24 FPS all the way to 120 FPS, everything was in 4K. No overheating, nailed it pretty much every single time. And in low light situations is where a lot of cameras are going to struggle with face and eye detect. The strobes everywhere, I'm constantly moving the camera, so I definitely push this camera to its limits. Another really cool thing that came with the firmware update was this pre-shoot setting. Basically, you can press your shutter button and it'll record about like a second before you actually press the button. It does like calculations in its head, it thinks. And then once you hit the fire button, let's say you just missed the athlete doing something, or maybe you just missed a fireworks or something jumping off a stage, it'll save that second beforehand just in case you missed the shot, and you can get it back, which is a absolute lifesaver. I personally haven't used it just yet, but I'm guaranteed to be using it in the future. Now, the other thing I like about this camera is that it also shoots in 45 megapixels in RAW, which gives me plenty of detail to punch into my shots to make sure I get the optimal cropping that I need. And also, we can do 120 FPS burst rate for photos. Yes, 120 pictures a second. Now, it is in JPEG, it is in 11 megapixels, but it is still plenty for social media. It's still plenty for basically anything else, unless you really need to punch in. But I think at that point, you should still be okay. I think most cameras back in the day didn't even hit 12 megapixels, and they were just fine. So I think it'd be just okay if you're gonna be using this setting. Now, beforehand on my Nikon Z6, the only way that I can shoot anywhere in 10-bit and in log footage was to have it with the Atomos Ninja 5. But now everything can be internalized with this thing in 10-bit in log, and it is really nice. The other really cool thing about it is that when you're shooting, it'll initially display like the log footage, but once you hit record, it actually applies like a LUT to it already. So you can see what your log footage is gonna look like when it's color corrected. Now, this is huge for post-production because everyone that has a Sony or a Canon, I know that you can probably do things internally with LUTs and whatnot. Actually, I don't know. You might want to look that up. But most of my friends that do shoot log, it just shows the log footage on the screen. and you kind of have to hope that all your exposure is correct and whatnot. This, I can see exactly how it looks and how I know it is going to come out, even if I'm shooting in log. Now, speaking of memory cards, this is probably going to be one of the nicest memory cards that you can get for any card that takes CF Express Type B, right? And this is the Angelbird 512 gigabyte CF Express Type B card. Now, what's really cool about this compared to any other like XQD, whatever cards is out there, that this write speed is 1,785 megabits a second. Yeah. That's a lot. And not only that, but it's 512 gigabytes, which is huge, absolutely incredibly huge.
That's what she said.
I shot all of EDC on this one memory card. Obviously, this doesn't fit with the GoPro or the drone or the 360 camera footage. This is all for the Nikon Z9. And the best kicker about this is that it is only $179 US.
Shut up and take my money.
Most XQD cards or most CF Express Type B cards that you're going to want to pick up at Best Buy are still going to be pretty expensive, like $200 for a 128 gig card with the same read and write speed as these guys. It's just worth it. I'll put some specs up here on top of the screen to be like, oh, you can shoot this amount of footage or this kind of footage for this amount of hours, and over here and over here. I know in 4K, like in 10-bit, whatever it is, I can shoot like 5 hours on this one card, which is insane. And this card can also handle all the RAW and ProRes RAW footage that you shoot on this camera. And obviously the biggest thing that's gonna be happening with this guy is the autofocus. The autofocus on the Nikon Z6 is not the greatest in the world, but it's really good for still shots like this, and talking heads are not really moving around as much. But because I do a lot of night photography and a lot of night videography, I have a hard time trying to find the correct eye autofocus because there's strobes, people are dipping in and out, there's hair always in the front. So this guy has actually proven pretty well with focusing in a lot of the situations. And I'm actually pretty stoked how it's coming out. And even sometimes it'll start focusing, it'll drift a little bit to a couple of different people here and there. But it is a lot easier at nighttime to do those eye detect autofocus points. Right, and the last biggest thing that I absolutely love about the Nikon Z9 is our swivel screen. Yes, I know. A lot of people are like, oh, it doesn't flip out this way, like I kind of hate it. Honestly, I wouldn't be using it for that because I'm not really doing selfie mode, although I have logged in this camera for a little bit. I have to use a 14 and 24 millimeter to get that. I could do the 24 to 70, but it's just really tight, so I have to like hold it out like all the way here, and it's just way too freaking long. But what's good about this guy is actually in low mode. So I'll be holding the camera like this and actually flip it out like this, and it can go all the way to 90 degrees. I don't know if you guys can see that. We'll probably do it in a couple of the close-ups, but it swivels out like that. And I can go like low mode. I can do like all these things. I can be like super discreet, and I can see, and it's lined up with the camera and it's lined up with the sensor. So I'm not doing like this weird like tilting, turning thingy, or if I want to be looking straight, have the camera like this, I can tilt upwards and everything is leveled and everything is lined up. And even though I absolutely love this camera, let's get to a couple of the cons that I don't like about it. First is the price. It is very expensive, probably out of budget for most people, most hobbyists. It was sitting around, I think when I got it was around like $55, $56. $100, and that is including the adapter for all my F-glass. And the other thing is that if you're not a Nikon NPS member, you're probably not going to get your hands on this for maybe till the end of the year, because pre-orders are still going out if they haven't finished it already. I'm not even sure if it's at B&H or anything else, but you can probably check your local camera stores, your mom and pop shops. They might have some for you for sale. But I was able to get this back in February. So I've had a little bit of time with it. I'm very grateful that I have it. And yeah, I really think it's worth it, but it is extremely hard to get as of right now. And the second biggest con with this thing, it is heavy, It is extremely heavy when you're doing a lot of shots. Your arms and your wrists are probably gonna get fatigued. So when I took this to EDC, started shooting all 3 days, I had a glide cam with me. I'm like doing all these weird, interesting shots, holding it with like one hand. My wrist hurt so incredibly bad that I wasn't really able to shoot comfortably for about like a week or two afterwards. I wouldn't recommend doing all 3 days, but if you have to do something like shooting EDC, it's really your choice if you think it's worth it. I think it's worth it, but just be careful. Another really big thing is autofocus when it's in really dark situations doesn't help as much. It wasn't as strong as I thought it was gonna be. Then again, I haven't really used a Canon or a Sony camera in low light situations because sometimes when I'm shooting, the lights don't really hit the faces. It's very dark. There's not a lot of ambient light, so I have to constantly crank up my ISO and whatnot. And I do have to use denoisers every now and then, but it's not super sticky when it's finding faces in low light. So when that happens, I usually use like the large shape box thing to use autofocus for, and for the most part stays like that, or I just go into manual focus, use focus peaking, and hopefully it's gonna turn out nice. All right, the next biggest thing is, even though this camera can shoot in 8K in NRAW, the only way to edit it is on DaVinci Resolve. You can't use it in Premiere just yet. However, you can use ProRes, and ProRes is widely used throughout all kinds of computers and editing softwares. It does take up quite a bit of space, so just be mindful if you are going to shoot it. Make sure that you have the right equipment to do so, process it, and have a computer that can handle that amount of data. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will be sharing a lot more of what I have done with this guy, and more tips and tricks if I do find anything. If you have a Nikon Z9, let me know. I want to be friends with you because it's gonna be freaking sick. And if you have any other questions about the camera, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer any kind of questions that you folks have. Also, for a future video, I'm actually going to rig out the Nikon Z9 to be a nice cinematic setup, like a cinema setup. Monitors, everything else, it's gonna be decked out. It's gonna be really nice. It's gonna look like a beast, absolute beast. But I also have one of the best shoulder rig setups I have ever seen on YouTube, and it's a compilation of so many things that I have gone through that I was like, oh, I wish I had this, or I wish I had that. And I'm gonna be building that for you guys as well, showing you guys how it's done, so you guys can look even more like a badass when you're on sets. All right, and that's gonna be my thoughts about the Nikon Z9. I've shot so many projects with it, so many pictures already, and I wouldn't trade this camera for anything else. Unless it was like a Alexa Mini, then I might be more inclined to. I'll see you guys in the next one.